Every Day a Better You, a podcast that's not about being better than the person next to you, but being better than the version of yourself a day prior. Your host, Farid Johnson, accompanied by my co-host, Henri.
Hello, everyone. This is Henri. A lot of people know me as Boo. Every Day a Better You.
So here we are. Welcome to episode 2 of our brand new podcast, Every Day a Better You. If you missed our premiere episode, remember, this podcast is not about anything else except making yourself a better version of the person that stares back at you in the mirror. Not making yourself better than the person that's sitting next to you, but the one that looks at you each and every day. How do you get better each and every day, each and every minute of that day? My name is Farid, a.k.a. Flip. I'll pass it off to my co-host, Henri.
I'm Henri, a.k.a. Boo, and this is episode 2.
So, Boo, you couldn't have said that better, right? Episode 2. What does that feel like?
So, episode 2 to me, it's monumental. I mean, I still can't believe I'm here, you know? But I think we should give a recap of episode 1.
Right, because we're going to get into some stuff about youth programs, and you're going to talk a little more about that. But I know beforehand you had left us off with a gym yesterday. What was that gym?
So the gym from last episode that I said was to write a letter to yourself, to your younger self, as an adult. That's something that I did that worked for me. And we said that we would do it and read it out loud on this episode.
All right. So you know what? I got you.
Whoa, time out. Does that mean you're going to read your letter or?
So I'm going to do you one better. I started writing my letter yesterday after we recorded because, that what you said it's powerful. I was like, oh my gosh, write myself a letter. That's genius. But like, Henri is a genius. I said it here first. Henri, genius. But I thought, why write a letter when I can just, kind of go back and do it right here, right now and talk about, I know exactly where I would go. So can I do that for the people?
I like that. And I think the people will want to hear that and see it.
All right, so here we go. So I grew up in Yonkers, New York, 321 Warburton Avenue, right over the pharmacy. So what I would tell my young self, right, and I'm thinking back to I remember having this conversation with my sister. I was in 3rd grade. She was in 2nd, right? And we're talking about, you remember Super Nintendo?
Absolutely.
So we're talking about when we grow up, who's going to get the Super Nintendo? Who's going to stay here? Who's going to get that room, right? Thinking real like in a box because we didn't think there was anything outside of that in our situation, where we lived, what we were going through, right? We were just like, oh, we're just going to be happy to just live here and just going to fight who gets what, right? And didn't think about technology, how that advances, like Super Nintendo. That thing is, how many years ago now, right? So what I would tell my 3rd grade self is that there's a life outside of all of that. There are experiences that you're going to have. You just have to be patient and wait. The trials and tribulations that you're going through at that present time in 3rd grade, because a little after that conversation with my sister, we were in foster care while I was in 3rd grade. But I'm gonna get to that in another episode. But there's a life outside of all of that, right? If you're just patient, keep working hard. Maybe not, take the thievery route, right? Try to start bettering yourself back then. But that's what I would tell myself. There's a life outside of that. Be patient, and it's going to come. And don't just think in a box. Really start living your life thinking that my goals that I want to reach, they're higher than anything that I could ever imagine than just fighting with my sister over who's getting to keep the apartment when we get older.
That's powerful. I really like that. Now, do you find as your older self, did that help you? And if it did, in which ways did it help you?
Yeah. So like I said, when I started to write that letter, I thought a lot about it. And, I think about times where when I was younger, oh my gosh, how am I going to ever get out of this situation? And then I think about once I realized that there was a life outside of that and there's more to attain to, I started thinking like that. My goals became higher. People say don't make such lofty goals, right? Though for me, like my goals were at the loftiest because I remember what it was like to think about I'm just gonna be 3-2-1 Warburton for the rest of my life, right? I wish I thought higher back then, right? And now because my goals, like I said, started as a school aide. Remember, we were teaching assistants together
Absolutely.
in White
Absolutely.
Plains.
Yeah.
And I continued to work my way up. People said, oh, you can't do that. Oh, you're not going to be able to be in an affluent neighborhood. Or you're not going to be able to run a school in that kind of neighborhood. Oh, you can't wear your earrings when you do things like that, right? These continue to be, like any barrier that somebody put on me continue to be a goal of mine. And I wish I had that kind of drive and tenacity back then. So yeah, it helps. I think about it all the time, boo.
Damn, Flip, that's deep.
Yeah, bro. Like we said yesterday, we're going to be going there, right? And speaking of going there, that's gonna nice segue into what we're talking about today, youth programs. Okay, so we've all been around them, right? And we have these conversations all the time, but now we get to bring this conversation to life. Why don't you talk a little bit about your upbringing in terms of outlets, right? And what was one of the big outlets for you to kind of get out of any situation or anything that you were going through?
Okay, so before there were sports, before sports was really a thing, one of my main outlets was the youth bureau, White Plains Youth Bureau. Okay, I always enjoyed the programs that they had in school, starting with the after-school programs, and then the extension of the actual youth bureau, which was a place that still is a place that you go to, get your homework help, do activities, you go on trips. So for me, that was always a big thing because my home situation wasn't the best. I dealt with parents and grandparents that suffered from alcoholism, drug abuse, a lot of violence, a lot of arguing, et cetera, et cetera. So as a kid, that was one of my main things that I used was the White Plains Youth Bureau.
Wow, that's some powerful stuff right there.
Yeah.
When you think back to that youth bureau, right? So describe the atmosphere for me, because again, I'm a Yonkers kid, right? And I know my own, right? And I'll get to that in a second. But describe that atmosphere. Like, what was that like? Who were the people in there helping with everything? Were they educators? Were they neighborhood people? What about your friends there? Like, just talk a little bit more about that.
So it was a mixture of everything. We had teachers there, we had social workers there, and we had mentors there. So the type of atmosphere was very conducive to kids because you had the structure, right? You had your academic help, but then again, you had your activities. And as you start getting older, you had your sports, So it was an atmosphere that was very conducive to kids.
Did it turn into like a summer camp as well? Was it an outlet in the summertime also?
So during the school year, we had our activities and our trips. And yes, I remember in the summer, there were a few different type of camps, but they were all started in the youth bureau. So you would age out of one camp and then go to another. And then by the time you age out of the second camp, you was probably working or something. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
But yeah, there were camps in the summer that was very fun. I remember.
And what about, because whenever you think about people getting together, having a good time, not the first thought, but sometimes the thought that can come to mind is like, all right, what happens when there was like problems escalated? Because you said it's like a community center, right?
Yeah.
So now you have problems, issues outside of that community center. Was that also a place for you all to like kind of bring those issues in and have like these like adult community members really help you go through those kind of situations?
So it was definitely a safe haven. Whatever went on outside of the youth bureau usually stayed outside of it. Everybody's demeanor changed once they came in because it was so positive. Now you had your little altercations every now and then, minor, but nothing major at all.
All right. So we can backtrack a little bit.
Yeah.
So you talked about using that as an escape from like, home situation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm asking you right now on air, you comfortable like maybe giving like go a little deeper
Right.
with that? Like, what are some of the things? I know you mentioned alcoholism, drug abuse. Like,
Yeah.
what would you be willing to go a little more specific? One of those kind of situations where that, if you can remember,
Yeah.
right? a time where it's like you really needed that White Plains Youth Bureau?
Right. So, as we said, we're going to go places that we don't care to go to, right? But I can remember I had the type of household, say a Friday night, right? You're coming home from school, from the after school program. You're walking home or whatever, taking the bus, getting off the bus, and you see police in front of the building. So as a kid, you know the situation and you're saying to yourself, you know what? It could be from my house. You know what I mean? It could be from my house. So, it got to the point where I was like, I don't even want to go upstairs, because most likely it is my house. But it was times like that where it's like, okay, I just want to go right to the youth bureau, go right outside to the courts or whatever. You know what I mean? So that was the early stages of me really needing an outlet, a positive outlet to go to. I'm not saying it was like that every day, but early on, I can remember Fridays, that was like a target day. Like, Friday evening, you never know what you're going to come home to,
Wow.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna look into this camera right now and speak to the people, because those of you that don't know Boo doesn't share much, right? Boo doesn't go into his past like that. Boo's quiet, Boo's reserved, Boo just works out, plays basketball, and just has a good time. It's like you never see this guy mad or anything. For him to share something like that is that really did just. I'm not trying to sound corny or anything,
Right.
but that touched me, because I'm an open book, right? I share
Right.
stories. I share stories all the time, but to hear you sit here in the most vulnerable stage and share a piece of your life like that, not only for me, and like I said, I've known you for 20 plus years, and didn't even know that. But that's powerful, and that touches home.
I mean, and that's learned, right? I mean, you're not gonna get to that point in your life where you're just saying things and everything. That's learned. So as I evolved, I've learned how to say things that was real personable to myself. So that came with time.
Well, I appreciate you, and I'm sure our viewers and our listeners appreciate it as well. Similarly, in Yonkers, growing up on Wahlberg, right down the street, we had Nepean Community Center, and it was the same kind of thing. There's outlet. The people that were there, they were from the neighborhood. So you see these older people from the neighborhood, and now you have someone to kind of look up to, because you went to the community center. It was like, oh man, these people, they're our heroes, right? And again, escaping from fights, from anything. They got counselors there, so you got someone to talk to. The homework help. So it's I think it's a real staple to have in a community. So if we're talking about that, right, something in the past, now how have you applied that to now, right? Because it's every day a better you. We're trying to take what we've been through and use it for more positivity. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you've been doing in the meantime to kind of honor that?
So in the meantime, I mean, you always try to pay it forward, right? So me and a few buddies, you being one of them, started a program, White Plains Wildfire. We started a program. It's a youth basketball program. And we mentor, obviously we coach, and we kind of raise the kids up. Some of them your kids, some of them one of our friends' kids. So we kind of raise them up in an environment that's positive and keep them busy, keep them focused. I mean, the avenue is sports. Basketball is a sport. That's the avenue.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so many other things that we do, that's reminds me of those days when I was growing up and when you were growing up, So that's how I pay it forward, so to speak.
Right. No, and we referenced that organization last episode,
Right.
the Wildfire, and the brain trust behind that was, and I'm going to say their names because I was involved, Boo was involved, Kevin Clampett was involved, and Anthony Booker. And that's kind of where it started, just sitting around talking about, what can we do for our kids? And then Boo and I started coaching the girls. My oldest daughter, they were in like fifth or sixth grade that year. And then Boo was like coaching the boys that year too. And it just kind of took off. And now we have something that's it's community, right? We're not going outside. It's just community.
All the kids are White Plains kids, right? So it's kind of a backyard program, grassroots. Raise them up. We coach them all the way up through high school, you know. So that makes me feel good. The fact that we're paying it forward and passing something down to the kids based on how we came up,
And that's straight up full circle based on what you talked about with the youth program and how it helped you. Now, a lot of our population that we deal with on these teams, they didn't go through some of the things that we went through, but we're still trying to give back.
Absolutely. And funny story, as you said, I had the boys too, 6th grade boys. And I take them around. We got a lot of friends that played ball, that went pro, da-da-da. So, we take them down to Kips Bay, which is a Boys and Girls Club in the Bronx. So we get there, and one of the kids was like, Coach, what is this? This is a school, right? So I was laughing, but I had to catch myself because I had to remember these kids have no idea what even a recreation program is. They have no idea what a rec center is. You know what I mean? So I had to break it down, and I said, listen, you see all these buildings around? After school, this is where these kids go. This is how I grew up. They come here, get their homework done, and then they go off and do an activity, and eventually they get into sports. But, I had to realize the kids that we deal with, they don't have that. They live in homes the size of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They have backyards the size of whatever. And mommy and daddy, and that's their rec centers. Mommy, daddy takes them everywhere. You know what I mean? Like when you think about it, like think about your kids. Do they even have friends from the inner city of White Plains?
So what's funny is you think about those kind of things. It's like not as many as we had.
Not even close, right? Not even close.
And you talk about giving back, right? And we always, for me, I wanted to always give my kids everything that I didn't have and more, right? And as I can admit, sometimes that was to their detriment because they're not having those experiences. They're not struggling through anything, right? But I think through programs like this, we can show them that there is another side. There are people that are living differently, and that's why we need to make sure that we're always thankful and grateful for what we have.
And that's one of the beauties of the program. We take them to areas where they have no idea even exists. The surroundings are totally different and everything else. But guess what? The kids are the same age bracket. They love playing the same sports. And there are commonalities, So our kids do form friendships that last all the way through high school, despite being from here and the other kid is from there, somewhere totally different. So that's one of the beauties of it too. And a lot of parents have thanked me for that, for being able to take their kids and put them in environments that they're not familiar with,
It's you remember 3 or 4 years ago when we had the girls wildfire back then, and we went to Taft in the Bronx, and we walking through metal detectors. They're like, what is this? At a school? Why would anyone need to? And we're explaining all of those things to them. But it's, these are real life experiences. Get them out of that bubble. And like, this is what real life is for someone. This is someone's everyday life.
Now, let me ask you this. You said you tried to raise your kids and give them everything you didn't have. Do you think that was detrimental or did it help them? Because it's hard to get that medium, right? You don't want them to experience things that we experience, but you want them to go through some things, So is it hard to find that medium, or from what you see now, what do you think?
So I have the privilege of having 3 beautiful daughters, right? So my oldest is 14. So with her, it was like, nah, she needs every single thing, right? But then as you go along, it's like, nah, she doesn't need everything. So let me take a little bit more off that with Skylar, a little bit more off that with Esme as you go along. But when it came to Aubrey, it was like I wanted her to have everything. She was like 2, and I wanted her to have the newest Jordans because I couldn't get them when I was younger. You know, so it's definitely a balance. It's a hard balance because those of you that know Aubrey, like she's grateful, thankful for stuff, but she kind of like sometimes comes across like she expects things, right? And I never want my kids to just act like they expect something to happen. Like you got to work for it. So now, you know, I kind of went back to Gloria Johnson style a little bit. It was like, nah, you working for that. Like I have it, you're gonna get it, but you're gonna work for it.
So my next question is, would you ever or have you ever taken your kids back around the way to where you grew up to show them the difference in how you grew up and how they are growing up and the things you used to do, the places you used to play where, I mean, they probably will turn their nose up, right? And it'll probably annoy you a lot, burn you up. But would you ever do that? Have you ever done that?
So I have when they were younger, right? More, you know, it was like more organic. Oh, I want to show you where Daddy grew up. This is where Daddy went to school, right? This is a park that I played that. But then it turned into when I felt them being ungrateful. I'm gonna take you back to where I grew up. I'm gonna leave you there, right? So that kind of scarred them a little bit. But it's funny you say that because like 2 weeks ago I was talking to them about them. I want to take them back down to Trevor Park and show them all of those things, not in a you're in trouble kind of way, but just in a this is how the other world lives kind of way, and this is how I lived growing up. Whew. Talked about a lot today. Boo, you know, I appreciate you, my brother. We went to a place with you today that like I've known you for a long time, and to hear you say the things that you said and to share what you said, like I said, I know I said it earlier, but that really touched me. I just wanted to again personally thank you for sharing your story today.
No doubt.
Let's close it out with our gym, Boo. What's our gym for this week?
So the gym for this episode, I would say, is to find something positive that you can do to help you in your situation. Whatever the case may be, find something positive, something that you can do, someplace that you can go that really puts you in that mind frame that can help you. That'll be my gym for this episode.
Like maybe going to like the gym or for a walk, hanging out with a loved one or something, anything that puts you in your happy place.
Yes, something as simple as that.
Yep.
You know?
All right. I like that one. I'm going to do it. I might do it more than once too.
I know. I always do it.
So that brings us to the end of this episode. Please remember to download, like, subscribe on all podcast platforms. We're closing out. Remember, this is a podcast, real stories,
Real reactions.
every day a better you. Make it a great one.